Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to, well, getting informed, digging into fascinating stories, and pulling out those essential nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're heading back, way back, to the old American West. It's a time, that just captures the imagination, vast spaces, rough justice,
Mm,
and these legendary names that, gosh, they just echo through history, don't they?
they really do. It's got this enduring allure.
So for this deep dive, we're tackling two of the biggest names from that landscape, Billy the Kid and Jesse James. Our main source is a really gripping narrative, Outlaws of the Wild West, Billy the Kid and Jesse James. And our mission really is to peel back those layers. The myth that builds up over time.
Yeah, cut through the noise a bit.
Exactly. We want to get to the complex reality, not just who they were, but why do these legends stick around? What do their stories actually tell us about that whole turbulent time?
It's fascinating stuff.
So get ready. We're going to uncover some surprising facts, I think. We'll dive into the chaos that shaped them and try to connect the dots, between what they did as individuals and these bigger themes, power, rebellion, and this is key, how media, even way back then, shaped history.
Oh, absolutely. The media angle is huge.
Yeah. We'll see how both these guys, who were, let's be honest, violent criminals,
Undeniably.
became these enduring symbols, but for really different reasons. Okay, so let's set the scene. The Old West. It's easy to picture, like, John Wayne movies, right? Big skies, sunsets.
Right, the romantic version.
But the reality was way grittier, chaotic, morally ambiguous, you could say. Survival often meant blurring that line between right and wrong.
Well, that's the crucial part. That environment wasn't just like wallpaper. It was fertile ground, perfect for figures like Billy the Kid and Jesse James to pop up. Because law, power, resistance, they were all tangled up together. Violence was, almost part of the fabric of daily life in some places. It wasn't a simple world, not black and white hats. It was this kind of melting pot where desperate times, shifting loyalties, the fight for control, it could forge legends out of, well, sometimes violent men.
That's a really powerful way to put it. So in that kind of environment, how much was law just, power with a badge instead of actual justice?
That's a great question. It makes you think how easily someone could get labeled an outlaw when those lines were so incredibly blurry.
Yeah. And when we talk legends, Billy the Kid, his
Yeah.
name just jumps out. He's got this image, right? Young, rebellious.
Almost romanticized.
Totally. But I know the reality, the actual story, is much more brutal than those romantic tales suggest.
You're absolutely right. Billy the Kid, well, he was born Henry McCarthy in New York, actually,
Mhm.
1859, later went by William H. Bonney.
Not exactly a Western-sounding start.
No, not at all. And his early life was tough. Orphaned at 14, out in New Mexico. That pushed him pretty quickly into petty crime, just trying to survive, probably.
And that first step.
Yeah, that initial stumble, it sort of set him on this path. Maybe an unavoidable one, given the circumstances.
Did it escalate quickly?
It seems so.
Yeah.
His first known killing was in Arizona. A bar fight. He shot a blacksmith, Francis Cahill. Billy claimed self-defense.
What?
But yeah, the authorities didn't buy it. He was declared a murderer. That incident, it wasn't just legal trouble. It was like, that's when Henry McCarthy really starts becoming Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
Pushed him further down that road of, well, violence.
And that road led him straight into the Lincoln County War, right? I've heard of that, but what exactly was that conflict? It sounds serious.
Oh, it was very serious. Billy got involved with an English cattleman in New Mexico, John Tunstall.
Okay.
Tunstall gets killed. It's basically a power struggle, a fight between established local elites and newcomers, like Tunstall over land, business, control of the whole region.
So Tunstall's murder kicks things off.
Precisely. Billy joins this group called the Regulators, sort of a vigilante posse seeking revenge for Tunstall. But it spirals. It becomes this full-blown bloody conflict. Cattlemen, corrupt officials, everyone gets dragged in. And Billy, he becomes a central figure, a brutal one.
So he wasn't just caught in the crossfire. He was an active participant.
Yeah.
Doing the shooting.
Absolutely. He was involved in numerous targeted killings. Sheriff William Brady, for example, a pre-guy on the other side. Billy was part of the group that gunned him down.
Wow.
And then there was the Battle of Lincoln, a 5-day siege, intense fighting. Billy was right in the middle of it, barely managed to escape with his life. These weren't random acts. It was part of this violent campaign.
But I heard something about a pardon. Did he almost get out of that life?
There was a moment, yeah. Governor Lew Wallace, later famous for writing Ben-Hur, strangely enough offered Billy amnesty if he testified in a related murder case.
Did he testify?
He did, but the pardon, it never came through. Politics, broken promises. Who knows exactly why? Billy felt completely betrayed.
I can imagine. So what happened then?
Jail.
Yep, jailed. But then, this adds to the legend, he stages this incredibly daring escape. Kills his guards, gets away.
No way.
Yeah. That escape really cemented his image, this sort of mythical, impossible to catch figure, even though the reality was he was a dangerous fugitive.
So the legend grows, but the law is closing in.
Exactly. His final showdown came thanks to Sheriff Pat Garrett. Garrett hunted him relentlessly.
The famous Pat Garrett.
The very one. Garrett tracked him to a friend's house, Fort Sumner, ambushed him in the dark, shot and killed him.
And Billy was how old?
Just 21.
21. That's incredible. All that in such a short time.
It is astonishing. His violent, short life somehow cemented him as this instant legend.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? That duality, misunderstood kid caught in bad times, or just a ruthless killer.
Yeah.
And how much did his youth, dying so young, fuel those later books and movies? Made him easier to romanticize.
Definitely factors into it. The live fast, die young archetype. Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's talk about Jesse James, another massive figure, equally legendary, but from a totally different background, right? Different part of the country, different circumstances.
Very different, yeah. Jesse James's story is tangled up with the Civil War and everything that came after. Born in Missouri, 1847.
So, right in that border state turmoil.
Exactly. And get this, at just 16, he joins the Bushwhackers.
Bushwhackers, what were they?
They were these incredibly ruthless Confederate guerrilla fighters, known for brutal tactics, ambushes, fiercely loyal to the Confederate cause. That experience, fighting as a teenager in that kind of war, it definitely forged this deep-seated hatred, this vendetta against Union folks, shaped everything that came later.
So the war ends, but for Jesse, it doesn't really end.
In a way, no. Post-war Missouri was a mess, deeply divided, lots of bitterness. And in that chaos, Jesse and his brother Frank, they start robbing banks, trains, stagecoaches, specifically targeting ones they linked to Union sympathizers with the Reconstruction government.
So it was personal, political almost.
It seemed that way, or at least that's how it started. He really shot to outlaw fame after accidentally killing a bank clerk during a robbery. He apparently mistook the clerk for a Union militia officer who had wronged his family during the war.
Wow, a mistake fueled by that wartime vendetta.
Exactly. And that tragic incident, ironically, just amplified his notoriety, started building his public image.
Okay, but here's where I remember it gets really fascinating. His image wasn't just like word of mouth, was it? There was someone actively shaping it.
Oh, you're spot on. This is absolutely crucial. A journalist named John Newman Edwards.
But Edward.
Edwards didn't just report on Jesse James. He basically became his PR agent. He actively glorified him, painting this picture of a Southern Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, really? Stealing from the rich northern banks to give to the poor southern folk.
That was the narrative Edwards pushed. A noble rebel fighting back against the oppressive northern elite who, in Edwards' view, had crushed the South. This is, early days media spin, big time, crafting a symbol of Confederate defiance out of a bank robber.
So less about helping the poor, more about sticking it to the North. A manufactured narrative.
Pretty much. The reality, Jesse was brutal. His robberies weren't noble. People got hurt, killed. Victims were often unarmed. His motives seemed much more rooted in personal revenge, that lingering wartime anger, maybe just greed, than any kind of social justice. The myth was way bigger, way cleaner than the man.
And didn't the authorities try hard to catch him? The Pinkertons?
They did. The Pinkerton Detective Agency, they were like the FBI of their day in some ways, hired to bring Jesse down. But it backfired, tragically.
What happened?
They raided his family's farm, threw an incendiary device into the house, trying to flush him out. But Jesse wasn't even there. The explosion killed his young half-brother and badly maimed his mother.
Oh my God. That's awful.
It was horrific. And the public reaction, especially in the South, it was outrage. Instead of catching the outlaw, the Pinkertons ended up making Jesse look like a victim, a Confederate martyr persecuted by ruthless Northern agents. It just fueled his legend even more, gave him sympathy.
Wow, so their attempt to stop him actually made him more popular in some circles.
Ironically, yes. But his luck, or maybe his judgment, started to run out. He planned this really ambitious bank robbery in Northfield, Minnesota, way up north, deliberately targeting a bank linked to Union figures.
Sounds risky.
It was a total disaster. The townspeople fought back fiercely. It turned into a bloodbath. Most of Jesse's gang were killed or captured. It basically destroyed the James Younger gang as it was, a brutal dose of reality crashing into the myth.
So after Northfield, things changed.
dramatically. Jesse became way more cautious, paranoid even, always moving, trusting almost no one. He formed a new, smaller gang.
And how did it finally end for him? It wasn't in a shootout, was it?
No, it was. Well, betrayal. In 1882, he was living under an assumed name. He'd taken in two brothers, Robert and Charlie Ford, into his new gang. He started to trust Robert.
Big mistake.
Huge mistake. Robert Ford, tempted by a hefty reward offered by the governor, shot Jesse in the back of the head while Jesse was unarmed, adjusting a picture on the wall in his own home.
In the back. While adjusting a picture. Cowardly.
That's how it's seen. Robert Ford became instantly infamous as the dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard. That was Jesse's alias.
And didn't Ford himself get killed later?
He did, about 10 years later, by a man named Edward O'Kelly. And O'Kelly famously said something like, "I'm the man who killed Jesse James."
Unbelievable. The obsession just continued.
It shows you how deep that legend ran. Even the man who killed the betrayer became famous.
It's just incredible how Jesse James, this violent guy with roots in guerrilla warfare, ends up this enduring folk hero, a symbol of Southern pride. What a complicated legacy. Okay, let's try and unpack this now. We've got these two huge figures, Billy the Kid and Jesse James. Parallel lives in some ways, but really distinct. What are the common threads? What deeper insights pop out when you look at them together?
Well, the first thing that just jumps out is this huge gap, right, between the legend and the reality for both of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Billy gets mythologized as this, misunderstood young rebel fighting a corrupt system. Jesse becomes the noble Southern avenger. But strip that away. Both were undeniably violent criminals responsible for multiple deaths.
It shows how much we want to romanticize figures like that, doesn't it? Especially rebels.
Exactly. We seem drawn to narratives that are maybe more appealing, more black and white, than the messy, often brutal facts. And their stories, both of them, really shine a light on how tangled up law enforcement and justice were with politics and money back then.
Right, the powerful elites.
Yeah. So for people who felt powerless or cheated by that system, these outlaws, even though they were criminals, they could become these weird symbols of resistance. It shows how the law wasn't seen as neutral or fair by everyone. Far from it.
And the media's role. We touched on it with Jesse James, but it seems crucial for both.
Absolutely critical. You can't understand Jesse James's legend without John Newman Edwards essentially writing his heroic narrative in newspapers. And Billy the Kid, well, Guy novels and sensational stories started popping up almost immediately after his death, shaping how people saw him.
So even back then, narrative was power. Whoever told the story controlled the image.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the power of storytelling, the power of media to shape perception, to turn brutality into heroism, blurring those lines between fact and fiction. It's not a new phenomenon at all.
That's a really important point.
And one last thing, maybe obvious, but still significant.
Yeah.
They both died young. Billy at 21, Jesse at 34.
Yeah.
That early death, it sort of freezes their image, doesn't it? It feeds into that romantic idea of the doomed rebel, the one who burns bright and fast, cut down before they get old, or maybe before the legend completely unravels. That archetype still really resonates in American culture today.
That's true. So connecting all this, what does it mean for us listening now? Why do these stories still grab us hundreds of years on? I mean, what we've really seen today is that these iconic Wild West outlaws, Billy the Kid, Jesse James, they were complex. Their real lives were often way more brutal, way grimmer than the legends we know.
The legends were constructions.
Exactly. Carefully built, sometimes deliberately by the times they lived in, by the media, even the early media of their day. They became these symbols that tell us maybe just as much about the society that created those myths as they do about the men themselves.
Well said.
So here's something to maybe think about as you go about your day. How do we, right now, today, choose our heroes and villains? Think about the stories we consume, news, social media, movies, everything. What role do those narratives play in shaping how we understand things like justice or rebellion or freedom? And maybe ask, what surprising truths might be hiding beneath the biggest, most enduring stories of our own time, the ones we often just accept as, the way things are? What's the story behind the story?